Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. So this week, don't have a whole lot to talk about. Don't have many games going on. Really, barely any games going on around the league this week. Had a Macomb-Laurel game from last night get canceled, maybe rescheduled. We'll see about that. But we had this Gulf Coast District tournament that happened this past weekend in Monroe, Louisiana, and we're going to kind of recap that a little bit and talk about what happened there. No guest today, so probably be a little bit of a shorter show here for the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show, but we got some good news on the streaming front for this big tournament. These big tournaments we have, Championship Saturday productions will be right here on the TSJW Network. We have a main sponsor for it, Vowels Marketplace. We appreciate them for supporting us on this broadcast we have coming up. And if you have a business or know somebody that may want to do some more sponsorship on our broadcast, be sure to email us tsjwnetwork@gmail.com, tsjwnetwork@gmail.com. We got a lot to talk about here today, as well as how these tournaments will be set up at the MSAHA championship tournaments, folks. We got some stuff to talk about. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. It begins right now. And we really appreciate you joining us. I'm Trellis Williams, your host here for the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button right now to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. That's where all the coverage lies right here. So this past weekend, we had the NCHBC Gulf Coast District Tournament. So these district tournaments around the country, they try to kind of localize the homeschool sports. Now, we do have our conference, the MSAHA, but we're kind of combined with some of these other states like Louisiana, as well as Arkansas, and then a little bit of Texas here in the Gulf Coast District Tournament. So going to start off talking a little bit of girls. And so we kind of talked a little bit last week about the different girls teams that were involved in this tournament. So from the MSAHA, we had we had the Laurel Lady Nighthawks, who got the 3 seed in this tournament, as well as the Meridian Flyers, who got the number 5 seed in the tournament. The Muddy River Counselors got the 7 seed, and the Hattiesburg Forerunners ended up with the 8 seed. So kind of where what we had here as far as results. So the Muddy River Counselors, Hattiesburg Forerunners were the 7 and 8 seeds, respectively, in a field of 10. They both had to play in a play-in ball game. They both won their ball games to make it into the field of 8. The Forerunners end up losing to the Tyler Heat, while the Muddy River Counselors end up losing to the CHA Flame. Now, those two teams ended up going into the championship ball game, the Tyler Heat and the CHA Flame. Meridian Flyers suffered a loss to Little Rock. Laurel able to get past the Good Samaritan Hornets from Fred, Texas. So Laurel was able to finish third. They finished third in the tournament. Laurel did, which was their seed, the 3 seed. They end up losing to CHA, the Flame, by 1 point as they were in the semifinal to get to the championship. They end up playing in a third-place matchup in which they handled the Little Rock Flame 60-37. So Laurel Lady Nighthawks finished the best out of the MSAHA teams, finishing third. And so as far as the Meridian Flyers were concerned, they ended up finishing 6th. They played in the 5th place ball game. They played the Forerunners to get to that 5th place ball game. Meridian won 33-28. They beat Hattiesburg. had a little MSHA matchup there in the Gulf Coast District Tournament. Meridian winning by 5 to make it to the 5th place matchup game, in which Meridian lost to the Good Samaritan Hornets, lost by 6 points. So Good Samaritan finished in 5th. Meridian finished in 6th. The Muddy River Counselors ended up, after losing to the CHA Flame, ended up taking on the Good Samaritan Hornets, a game in which they lost by 10, which sent them to a 7th place matchup, a game in which they took on the Good Samaritan Hornets. The Counselors ended up, they didn't play the Good Samaritan Hornets. They played the Southwest Louisiana Knights, a game they won 37-29. So the Counselors finished 7th. And so that kind of wraps up what we saw there from the 18U girls. Now, in terms of the MSHA, multiple teams are brought for a lot of these teams. We had teams in the 16U boys, the 16U girls. I don't know how many we had in there, but I said 14U boys, 14U girls, as well as even 12U boys here at this district tournament. We're going to kind of focus a little bit on the 18U teams as we do on this show. So talking a little bit about 18U boys. Now, the Muddy River Counselors, of course, have been the #1 team in the conference so far this year, and they got the 2 seed in the Gulf Coast District Tournament. The team above them was the Tyler Heat, a team that won the championship in the Gulf Coast last year, and they got the #1 seed again this year. The Counselors were undefeated, 19-0 heading into the Gulf Coast Tournament, and so they got the 2 seed. PCA ended up with the 4 seed. PCA's had a great season. People sometimes will overlook kind of their performance. They've done well. They've been without Hayes Peace pretty much the entire season. He was a big-time player for their team, a guy that they relied on heavily last year. Could not play this year. They had the addition of Scotty Covert to their team, which, made them better, but then they end up losing Hayes Peace, which definitely was a tough effect on them, but they've done well regardless. Going into this game, I do believe they were 15-4 on the season, which is an excellent record. And even in their games against the Counselors, who were undefeated, lost by 9 and lost by 11. So this PCA team's been competitive all year. They ended up with the 4 seed in this tournament. And so then also in the MSAHA, the next team on the list was the Jackson Victors, who end up getting the 9 seed in the tournament. And then that was followed up by the 10 seed going to the Laurel Nighthawks. So Laurel and Jackson, they've been very competitive. In the MSAHA, you've had the Counselors, you've had PCA, and then everybody else, not everybody else, but basically everybody else has been extremely competitive with each other. Even Hattiesburg having some competitive games with even PCA. But PCA's won all their games other than the games against the Counselors. But talking about this district tournament, Laurel ended up being the 10 seed. Hattiesburg got the 12 seed, and then the Tupelo Titans competed in the tournament at the 14 seed. And so that's kind of where we saw it. First round, there was a play in there, 15 teams. There was a first round with everybody playing except for the Tyler Heat got a bye. So if we start up at the top, the Muddy River Counselors got the 2 seeds, so they took on the 15 seed. Now, the Counselors were playing a 15-seeded Good Samaritan Hornets team. Now, this 15-seeded team was 15-2 on the season heading into the ball game. So the Counselors were 19-0, but the Hornets were 15-2. Now, the Counselors were able to take it to them, taking as much as a 45-point lead. They ended up winning by 37, 79-42 there in the first round. So the Counselors easily got to the second round. The Tupelo Titans were the 14 seed, took on the 3-seeded Champ Hawks. Lost by nearly 40 to the Champ Hawks. Hawks, very good team, 77-39. PCA, their first round matchup was against CHA. Now, PCA was the 4 seed, took on the 13-seeded Flame. PCA winning that one by 20, 57-37. The Forerunners got the Knights of Southwest Louisiana out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. The Forerunners lost their first round matchup by 28 points to the Knights. The Knights able to get to that next round. Forerunners dropped on that one. Shreveport and Laurel, this one was a tight game for a lot of the ball games. Shreveport was able to pull away. They beat the Laurel Nighthawks in that game. Little Rock and Jackson. So the Little Rock Flames and the Jackson Victors competed, and the Victors were right there. Lost by 2 points right there at the end. Little Rock able to advance to the next round. So out of all those, it was really only PCA and the Muddy River Counselors, who advanced to the next round. Those are the top 2 seeds out of the MSHA that advanced to that next round. And so kind of following our start off by following the teams. So all the teams that lost in the first round dropped into the Division 2 of the district, while the teams that won made it to the Division 1. And so now looking a little bit at Division 2, the Forerunners ended up taking on the Flame. Forerunners won that ball game 44-40, a very close game. So the Forerunners got that win. The Victors had a bye in D2, and they took on the Forerunners, a team that they beat 60-41. They beat Hattiesburg, and so got a 19-point win there for the Jackson Victors. Then the Tupelo Titans took on the Saline County Warriors, a very good ball game, 84-81. Saline County beat Tupelo, so a bummer for Tupelo, but 84-81 is a really good ball game. A lot of points scored in that game. Laurel Nighthawks took on the Good Samaritan Hornets. Laurel had a lead in that ball game. Good Samaritan came back on them and beat them, so Laurel dropped that one too. And so this made it to where the Jackson Victors got to the D2 championship ball game, where the Victors lost to Good Samaritan by a lot, nearly 40 points. Good Samaritan won 56-17 to win the Division 2 championship in district. Forerunners took on Saline County, losing by 14 in the third place matchup in Division 2. So looking at Division 1, of course, we talked about that with the Counselors getting there and PCA getting there as well. So this set up a 4-seed and 5-seed matchup for PCA. They took on the Southwest Louisiana Knights, who had just beaten the Forerunners. PCA wins this ball game by 9, 53-44. Now, PCA, it was a very close game early on. I kind of watched the beginning of this game. I didn't see the end, but I know that PCA was able to pull away from Southwest Louisiana, and the Paladins were able to get the win, a big win that they wanted, getting to the semifinal by a score of by a 9-point win. And PCA was able to get back to the semifinal 2 years ago. They ended up making it to the championship 2 years ago, but last year they did not make it to the semifinal. So this is one of those things for PCA where it is an improvement from last year. They finished 5th last year, and so this year they were able to get into the semifinal. The Muddy River Counselors took on the Shreveport Force, who had beaten the Laurel Nighthawks. So the Counselors were able to win this game by a lot, 82-46, a 36-point win for the Counselors. Counselors in this round right here last year, they had a heartbreaking loss to the Faulkner Falcons, a game in which they were leading by 12 with 2.5 minutes left. They ended up losing that game last year. So this time they were able to take care of business, winning by 36 points and making it to the semifinals for the first time ever for the Counselors here in this district tournament. And so that was big for them. PCA was matched up with the Tyler Heat, the number 1 seed. The Heat going into that game was 24-2. A very good team, and PCA took a tough loss to him. 66-28, a 38-point win for Tyler Heat. Heat, very good team this year. They were able to beat PCA there. The Counselors had a matchup with the Champ Hawks, so this was the second time those two teams had taken each other on. Last year, they faced off in the regionals in Dallas. The Counselors won that game 63-59 in a very low-scoring game. This time, another low-scoring game. The Counselors win 60-43, but the Counselors are able to really defend very well against Champ and beat them by 17 points. So this put the Counselors into the championship ball game. It's dropped PCA into a third-place game. PCA took on Champ in a third-place ball game. Champ was able to beat PCA by 11, 63-52. So PCA finished in 4th, which is where they were seeded. They were seeded as the 4 seed, and they got 4th place in the tournament. Champ got 3rd, which that was their seeding. Anyway, so this led to a championship ball game between the Tyler Heat and the Muddy River Counselors. For the Counselors, this was a goal all season long. From the preseason, the Counselors had their eye on wanting to make it to that championship game to take on the Tyler Heat. Tyler Heat were dominant last year. The championship game last year was a 64-28 win for the Tyler Heat over the Champ Hawks last year in the district championship ball game. The Counselors did not want to go out like that this year, and they didn't. But the Tyler Heat did beat the Counselors, which was the Counselors' first loss of the season, putting them to 22-1, ending a 26-game winning streak that spanned all the way back to March 11th of 2024, the Counselors lost a basketball game, losing it by 2 to the Tyler Heat, 43-41, and this game was crazy. The Counselors started off very strong, taking a 9-2 lead. Tyler Heat was able to rope them back into the ball game. They were playing a low-scoring game. The Counselors' previous lowest-scoring ball game was 62 points. This time there's 41. Very low-scoring game. Counselors have been averaging 80 points a game this season. But the Counselors defended very well. Tyler Heat has been accustomed to scoring way more points than they did in this game as well. Tyler Heat was starting to pull away, but then a barrage of three-pointers by Michael Williams kind of brought the Counselors back in it. But the Tyler Heat was able to finish off with the win, 43-41. It was a thrilling ball game, and the Counselors finished second in the Gulf Coast District Tournament. And so that's kind of where what we saw here in in the Gulf Coast District Tournament. But, MSHA teams really did show up, show out in terms of playing ball. We saw a lot of MSHA teams playing, and it was good. It was good to see, and they were able to do a very good job. And so what we are looking forward to is some of these tournaments coming up. Got the 16U tournament that's coming up on January 31st and February 1st, and then the 14U and 18U tournaments coming up February 6th, 7th, and 8th. And that we should be able to stream a lot of that stuff right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. We're very excited about that. Do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now, and we really appreciate you joining us. And I want to do a little explanation of how these tournaments will be set up. So, in the different divisions, kind of want to show these standings again. They're the same as last week. So starting off with the 18U girls. So we see Laurel is number 1. PCA is number 2. Followed up by Meridian, Muddy River, Hattiesburg, and Macomb. So how this tournament is going to be set up is that in a 6-team format like this in 18U girls, you're going to see the number 1 team, Laurel, take on Macomb first. So the 1's going to play the 6, while the 2's going to play the 5. So PCA and Hattiesburg will match up. Then it'll be Meridian and Muddy River. So the winners of these games, so there'll be 3 winners and 3 losers. The 3 winners will go into a gold pool, while the 3 losers will go into a silver pool. Once you get into those 2 different pools, now you have a round robin. And that round robin, the records that come forth out of that will determine who's the champion. So if you have a gold pool, that's the championship pool. And so if a team wins the 2 games out of that pool, playing the 2 other teams in there, they will be the champions of the MSAHA. Now, if every team wins 1, it'll come down to point differential, and that's how the tournament works. So it'll be a little different than we are used to seeing in the MSAHA. We've really almost always gone with a double elimination format. We've done single elimination a couple of times in the younger divisions, but in older divisions, we've only gone with double elimination. Now, there have been pluses and minuses to that. In double elimination, it allows for teams that lose once to still have a chance, and they can work through that losers bracket where they play teams more at their level, and it gets them back maybe closer to the winners bracket. The negatives of that is that if you lose on that first day, a lot of times you'd have to win 3 games on that Friday, which is very taxing. And so once you get all the way back to that championship ball game, now, you're almost like damaged goods at that point in time. And, you have to beat the champion twice, or you have to beat the team that's in that position twice, which is something that can be done. But it does kind of put everything in a tailspin. And in this situation, if you lose that first game, you're out. So that's tough, but it makes every game count, and it should be an exciting thing. Now, that's the gold pool. So the gold pool obviously will finish, and a lot of times this is how it finishes. One team's 2-0, one team's 1-1, and one team's 0-2. When that's the case, obviously the 2-0 team's the first place, the 1-1 team's the second place, and then the 0-2 team is the third place. Well, in the silver pool, it works the same way. So you have a 4th, 5th, and 6th place. So you'll have places for everybody in that kind of setup. So this girls' standings, as we show it again, these are set. Nobody's changing from these positions. So it will be Laurel and Macomb playing first round, PCA and Hattiesburg playing, and then Meridian and Muddy River. And this game determines which pool these teams play in. Obviously, previewing these games right now, Laurel and Macomb, PCA and Hattiesburg, you have obvious favorites there. Meridian and Muddy River will be crazy. I mean, you're talking about a rematch of what we saw that eliminated Meridian last year with a buzzer beater from Muddy River. These games have always been close. Now, this year, these two teams traded double-digit victories there. We're going to kind of preview that closer to the time, but that's how that tournament's going to be set up, especially with that 6-team format. And so now we're going to look at the 18U boys standings. Now, these standings are subject to possible change. Now, I was telling you a little bit about Laurel and Macomb who were going to play yesterday, and I believe it got postponed. We'll have to see when it gets postponed to that, but that's pretty important. You see Laurel 7-6, while Macomb is 6-6. So this can affect the way that this pans out. But let's say this is the final standings right here with Muddy River 1, PCA 2, Laurel 3, Macomb 4, Jackson 5, Hattiesburg 6, and Meridian 7. Laurel and Macomb are the only ones that really can switch here. Other than that, it's pretty much set. In this case, over 6 teams, you don't have those different pools. What you're going to have is a straight up single elimination tournament with a first round and a second round championship game. Obviously, since you only have 7 teams, the counselors will get a bye. They will not play in the first round. So you will have PCA taking on Meridian first round. And then in this case, you would have Laurel and Hattiesburg facing off in the first round as well. And then Macomb and Jackson. Now, I'm telling you, this Laurel and Hattiesburg, Macomb and Jackson would be great ball games. And that would be the first round in this seeding case here. And you see it makes a big difference whether it's Laurel or Macomb because that is the 3 and the 4. And so that would make a big difference there. But anyway, what you have there is the winner of the 4 and the 5 matchup with Macomb and Jackson would take on the Muddy River Counselors who are waiting in the next round. Then the winner of PCA and Meridian would play the winner of Laurel and Hattiesburg. And so now you have a semifinal there. And so then, of course, the winners of those games will go to the championship ball game. Now, the teams that lose in this scenario will go into a loser's bracket, and they'll be in the running for 5th place. And so you'll have 4 teams in that loser's bracket. And at that point in time, you'll have 3 teams there, but they'll work it out as you have it there with the loser's bracket. But every team will at least get 3 games, except for the Muddy River Counselors. They will only play 2 games in this tournament. That is guaranteed, whether they win or lose. If they lose first round, they're playing for 4th, or they're playing for 3rd, rather. If they win, they go to the championship. So the Counselors will only play 2 games for 18U boys. But the rest of everybody, I do believe, will play 3 games. I do believe. But that I could be wrong on that, but I do believe that everybody's got to guarantee 3 games there. So that's kind of how this tournament will be set up. And of course, if you have 5 teams, at that point in time, and I think we do have that in a 16U girls bracket. But if you have 5 teams, you have a pool of 2, which will play 1 game thereafter. So that's kind of how these tournaments will be set up. A little explanation there on that. But we will be talking more in depth of previewing, and we will talk a little 16U next week. We'll be previewing that. Should have a special interview next week too. That is in the works that we're trying to work on as well. But we are very glad that you've joined us. I'm Trellis Williams, your host. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. I am Trellis Williams. We out.